question is, was he the shooter?
It seems like we're being spoon-fed a narrative.
I now believe there is a federal level of corruption and conspiracy involved in this murder, okay?
In the 10 months since Charlie Kirk's death, some of the loudest voices on the right have worked overtime to discount the official narrative of his killing. And millions have followed them down the rabbit hole. In a way, the conspiracy theories around Kirk's death were inevitable. MS Now's Brandy Zadrozny reports that the MAGA media universe Kirk helped build was doing exactly what it was designed to do, but that relentless suspicion and so-called fact-finding is now tearing MAGA apart. And Brandy tracks its descent in a new documentary series. Joining us now, MS Now senior enterprise reporter Brandy Zadrozny, senior reporter at The Bulwark, Will Sommer. Rick Wilson is back with us. Brandy, I remember months ago talking to you about kind of this concept. You were running to a meeting about it. And so I am very happy to say that it is out. And congratulations to you and the team for getting this out. One of the things that's so interesting, and this continues to be interesting to me, is that conspiracy theories are not new, right? We all have family members, especially now, who believe some, I'm not going to name any of y'all, but you're probably watching, some online conspiracy theories. And it's been happening since JFK, and he was assassinated until now. And I want to play some more sound about conspiracies and attention from the doc. Listen to this.
Stephen Prochaska studies how this kind of thing happens, how people online collaborate to interpret events and create narratives to explain them. People in academia call it participatory misinformation or collective sense-making.
When we are trying to understand anything that we don't understand initially, we're uncertain, something's ambiguous, something's new or novel, and so we don't understand these things in isolation. There's the collective sense-making process. It does involve these crowds of people coming together trying to understand something. But in practice, there are some people who just have more influence within a particular community. There are people whose almost entire livelihoods are based off of navigating this attention economy.
In other words, there's a hierarchy. And in this case, one person sits at the top.
I have spent a lot of time, less time than you, watching Candace Owens as this has changed and how she's talked about it. When you think about where the right is on the disbelief in institutions, this felt inevitable. But most importantly, this is stranger, probably because of social media.
Yeah, I mean, listen, conspiracy theories have been around or as long as people have been around, right? We want to explain the way things work, and we want a neat explanation for that. In the before times, you had a handful of people whose job was to create these conspiracy theories, and a handful of ways, radio, writing, pamphlets, to spread those conspiracy theories. We are in a moment where there's just a huge, huge market for it. There are a lot of conspiracy theorists. Alex Jones said the other day, there are 1 million Alex Joneses now. And he was incredibly right. You know, there are lots of people who make a living online spreading conspiracy theories and coming up with them. Candace Owens, again, sits at the top of those right now. But not only, has changed just the number of people who peddle in these conspiracy theories, but the way that they are spread has just expanded with social media. So even right now, and you mentioned MAGA, but it really, really is starting to be less and less just a MAGA thing, just a right-wing thing. It really is spreading to every political ideology. I think COVID and the distrust spread by Donald Trump and the like in our systems has really just disrupted trust in this way that's it's hard to even see how we come back from that now. Yeah. But it's a problem.
Brandy, so much of this feels like psychology, right? That human beings are typically, it seems nowadays, more likely to believe a deep, dark, winding conspiracy theory than kind of the normal, boring explanation for some of these sometimes unexplainable things that happen in this country. And as someone who's steeped deep into this world, what's your biggest takeaway from the documentary that you made? Part 1, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the biggest takeaway is just how, this conspiracy theories used to be a very small beat. Disinformation used to be a very small beat. Will Sommer, who's also on with us right now, used to be on this beat with me at the Daily Beast, over 10 years ago. And now I have this sort of saying that we are all disinformation reporters now. So everyone who's a political reporter has to be on the disinformation beat, has to understand how conspiracy theories and lies are used by people to gain power or wealth or further some sort of cause, and understand how to track them, trace them, understand how to debunk them eventually. But I think that it's just the widespread nature of all of it.
Yeah, well, you've been covering this for a long time as well. It feels like this is maybe simply what happens when a political movement is largely built on conspiracy theories, that people with power and influence play in those conspiracy theories, play them up in order to win. And then you end up with the situation that Brandy's covering now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think whether it's Charlie Kirk or Donald Trump, these people who promoted conspiracy theories to build their bases, to build their political power, often they then face that themselves, whether it's, Turning Point USA played into a lot of these conspiracy theories. Charlie Kirk had his own show that was sort of devoted to conspiracy theories. And now we're seeing that, unfortunately, really rebound against his family and his organization.
Yeah, some of it's a nightmare, watching the ways in which people, sometimes blame his wife for what happened, which is quite disturbing. Rick, I want to bring you in here. You are someone who probably understands the Republican Party and it's the way it's changed and the way the right has infiltrated and taken over the Republican Party. You're probably not surprised at this, and I don't know if you watched the documentary, but it's probably things that you have been talking about, that that this was where we were going to end up. Where does this end? I think Brandy's concern that we're not going back, I share it. I assume you do as well.
I really do, Eugene, and people believe in conspiracy theories to give themselves a sense of coherence. But the people that are selling these conspiracy theories, as Brandy pointed out, this is an industrial part of what I call the influencer industrial complex on the right. You've got the Candace Owenses and the Alex Joneses and a million other imitators, and these people are making money off of trying to give MAGA voters a sense of coherence and understanding, and giving them, like, this is the secret esoteric knowledge they don't want you to know. And that's a very profitable niche. And while Donald Trump used conspiracy theories to gain more political power, these people are gaining more eyeballs, more clicks, more subscribes, and they're using it they're using it because there's a powerful financial incentive for a lot of them. I don't know how we wrap this up, but it is, as Brandy pointed out, everybody's got to be a disinformation reporter now, and everybody's got to focus in their own life on not reposting the thing that you think is really cool right away, because that temptation relies on the virality of social media to spread these things further.
Discernment is lacking on social media. Brandy, in the minute that I have left, I'd like to end this on maybe a more hopeful note. It's a very depressing segment so far. When you talk to experts on misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories, is there a way to get maybe not millions of people at the same time, but person by person, to pull them back from operating within this world?
I don't know about experts. Maybe I'm going to quote myself, because I feel like I've been at these things long enough. I was just at the Tyler Robinson hearing recently, and I spoke with a lot of people who were there in the crowd that were very much of the opinion that Erica Kirk was in on some cover-up of the murder of her husband. And what was striking to me is that these people who believed it were sitting were sitting in front of her the next day at one of these hearings, and just being close with her. When I talked to them later that same day, they said, actually, I think I was wrong, and I feel really, really bad for ever having thought that, because they heard her cry. They heard her talking to Charlie Kirk's mother. And so they had that personal experience. I think we have to get to a point where we can empathize. Obviously, everyone can't meet Erica Kirk, but I think we can get to a point where we treat other people as humans and don't just see them as, characters in a conspiracy theory or characters on the internet, but really humanize those people that we're talking about before we spread things about them.